Hello, my name is Caroline Smith. I'm reading Indians of the Oaks by Melicent Lee. This is Part 1, Chapter 5, A Magic Lunch. It was almost noon before we found the yucca plants. Long, narrow leaves grew around the thick, juicy stalks, which were just ready to pick. The pink buds had not yet opened. Look all about you first, said Pion, then choose the best. We cut many stalks, enough for everybody in the tribe. Pion put his stalks into his net, and I put my stalks into mine. One of the old men had made me a very nice net out of milkweed fiber. The old people get hungry for yucca in the springtime, said Pion. We will roast a stalk for our supper tonight. Our supper? Aren't we going to eat anything for lunch? I asked. Pion smiled. I've brought our lunch, as you say, with us. I could see nothing inside the net that looked like lunch. Pion reached down deep and pulled out a deerskin bag about as big as a pig's ear. He flattened it out. In the center were many tiny dark seeds. Chia seeds, said Pion. Seeds of a bright blue flower. Apachuk gathered them in the mountains last fall. He took a little clay bowl from his net and kindled a small fire with his oak punk, which he had carried in the bowl. Then he toasted the seeds over the fire, shaking them all the time so that they would not burn. When they were brown, he spread them in a shallow hole in a rock and ground them into meal with a stone. Then he put the meal into the bowl and poured it into some cool water from the little jar. He stirred the liquid with his fingers, and in a few seconds there was a jelly-like mush in the bowl. Taste it, said Pion. I dipped my finger into the mush and sucked my finger. It seemed as if I were sucking the juice of all the desert flowers I had ever known. Then I held the bowl to my lips and half drank, half ate the mush until it was all gone. When I looked up, I saw Pion laughing at me. Did you save any for me? He asked. A sick feeling came over me. I had eaten it all. Pion laughed again. I never eat lunch, he said. Haven't you noticed that? Indians never ate more than 2 meals a day before the white people taught them to eat 3. Perhaps an Indian needs to eat only 2 meals, I thought, but I couldn't live that way yet. After my chia porridge was all gone, I felt very sleepy. I wanted to lie down somewhere and have a nap. There was just one little creosote bush near me. I will lie under that, I thought. Pion picked many creosote branches with their sticky leaves of bright green and stuffed them into his net. What are you going to do with those? I asked. Apachuk's mother has a bad cough, he said. She will stew these leaves and sniff the steam. And the others in the tribe have coughs. This is good medicine. Sometimes we drink it too. It is very bitter. I knelt down and began to crawl under the creosote bush. I brushed away the little twigs which were on my bed. Hi, yelled Pion. Come back. Watch what you're doing. I turned cold all over and crept back quickly. Then I stood up. Look, said Pion, pointing at the very place where I had been going. I could see nothing but little twigs. Look again. He took a long stick and pointed at the twigs. Still I could see nothing. Look again. He poked his stick into the twigs, and a small, sand-colored rattlesnake crept out of the tangle and began to crawl across the open sand in a queer sidewise way. That is the desert sidewinder, said Pion. Some people call it the horned rattlesnake because it has horns of skin. If it had bitten you, you would have died because you're too far away from the medicine man. He would suck the poison out of the end of your nose if you were here. Keep your eyes open if you want to be a good Indian. I had disappointed Pion again. But when I looked into his face, it wore the sweetest smile I had ever seen. All this comes hard, Queetalk, he said. Every Indian child has to learn these things. But the one who never forgets them, he is the one who makes the best Indian in the end. I watched the snake. It traveled slower and slower. After about 10 minutes, it stopped altogether. It seemed to be dead. It is dead, said Pion, guessing my thoughts as usual. The horned rattlesnake travels at night. It cannot stand the sun. All day it sleeps under a bush. A little while in the sun, and it is dead. I looked very carefully before I lay down under the bush. I poked around with a stick first, but I was not afraid. Pion squatted down beside me. He did not sleep. It was dusk when I woke up. Pion was still there. He was rolling mescal fiber over his thighs with the palms of his hand, twisting it into a cord. What are you going to do with that? I asked sleepily. It is good for many things, he answered. It is good for sandals and carrying nets and hairbrushes. It is one of our strings. Where did you get it? I asked, for I could see no mescal. He patted his net. I brought some pieces with me, he said. I have soaked them for many days. Now they're ready to twist. I lay under the brush, wondering if I could ever know as much as Payan knew. "Kiyu," he said suddenly, looking at the sky. "It's time to roast our yucca. And I've got a rabbit, too. I shot him while you were asleep." He showed me a desert rabbit hanging from his belt. "We shall have a good supper," he said. I followed Payan up the trail and rested after my long sleep and hungry for my supper. For 2 more days we stayed in the desert. The mescal stalks were roasted by that time. We gathered them up carefully and packed them in our nets. We wore basket caps going home. Our load was so heavy that the cords would cut deeply into our foreheads if they were not protected. On the way back, we met an Indian who killed a mountain sheep. He was carrying part of it over his shoulder. I guess he had given the rest away. We smiled to ourselves because we knew that his grandfather's mescal stalks were bitter, but we knew that his mountain sheep was sweet. We met others coming from all directions. They had mescal stalks in their nets, and desert quail and rabbits hanging from their fiber belts. One old Indian had as many as 25 rabbits in his net. "What are you going to do with all those rabbits?" I asked him in the Indian language. "The medicine man's mother wanted some more rabbits for her rabbit skin blanket," he answered. "Rabbits are getting scarce in the village because many of the old people are making blankets." All of the men were carrying heavy loads. They had brought with them the good things of the desert: bark, medicine, mescal leaves for fiber, and many other things, besides the mescal stalks. We joined the women at the foot of the mountain. They were very merry. They had painted their faces in scarlet and yellow and had tattooed their chins black with cactus needles and partly burned wood. They gathered up their things when they saw us coming. They had collected a great deal from the desert store, too. The women hung their baby cradles on their backs. The little naked children fell into line, and up the trail we started. "We shall have a feast when we get home," said Payan to them all. Payan took the place of the chief when his father was not with us. "Mountain sheep, mescal, and plenty of water from Hakwa Natil." Ha means water, Natil means black, and Kwa joins the words together. These words mean Black Spring, which was the name of our village.